Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Zellner, and I'm a PhD candidate at Drexel University. And today I'll be presenting my case study on designing icons to represent delays in time-critical medical events. The domain I'm working in is trauma resuscitation, where a team of clinicians work to stabilize a critically injured patient. Medical delays and errors during trauma resuscitations contribute to nearly half of preventable deaths in the trauma bay. To mitigate these delays, our research aims to develop an alerting system that will detect and alert medical teams to critical delays during trauma resuscitation to support timely and accurate decision-making. In prior work, we developed this prototype alerting system to reduce delays. The system was created following extensive user research, including interviews, design workshops, and simulations with our clinical teams. Our system targets the three most frequently observed delays in resuscitations. First, no IV-IO access, indicating a need for establishing intravenous or intraosseous access. Second, no vital signs or blood pressure, showing missing patient vitals. And third, incomplete request for actions like blood transfusion, intubation, or medication administration. The system has a large wall monitor displaying a grid, and the central area of the grid marks elapsed time, while the surrounding segments will light up with icons specific to each type of delay. For instance, if an additional IV access point is not set up within 5 minutes, its corresponding icon lights up on the grid, drawing immediate attention. This icon fades once the issue is resolved, focusing only on current delays. Acknowledging that not all team members can view the monitor during a procedure, we integrated ambient ceiling lights that correspond to the grid alerts, so the whole team can be aware. This study focuses on the design and the evaluation of the icons for this alert system. Previous icon design research has found that users generally prefer more realistic and easy to interpret icons. Implementations of realistic icons have also shown better outcomes. HCI researchers have previously designed icons for complex concepts in emergency medicine for an electronic health record. Our setting of trauma resuscitation differs from this prior research because our clinicians will need to interpret these complex concepts at a glance without affordances, like being able to hover for a description. The case study was conducted at a level 1 trauma center in an urban pediatric teaching hospital. There were 4 parts to this case study. First, an initial design process, then a survey to evaluate the initial icons, followed by a redesign process, and then a final survey to evaluate the redesigned icons. Participant recruitment was through email, and we reached out to a total of 310 clinicians at our trauma center. For the first survey, 27 clinicians responded, and in the second survey, 29 clinicians participated. Both surveys were conducted via Qualtrics. A graphic designer and I used the 10 by 10 sketching technique to iteratively design concepts for each alert type. We received feedback from clinicians on our research team that we used to develop a first set of icons. These are the initial icons we designed to represent most frequent process delays during trauma resuscitation. We used different iterations of X's to convey that a task was delayed. And for incomplete requests, we tried to convey the abstract concept via clipboard and speech bubbles. We evaluated this initial set of icons in the first survey, where we showed participants each icon, and then we asked them to write what they thought each icon depicted. We calculated the proportion of participants who correctly interpreted each icon as our interpretability metric. Then participants selected which icon they preferred most out of each delay type. And lastly, participants could provide more details about their reasoning of their choices via free text response. The no IV-IO alert was the most correctly interpreted icon of all the delay types. Still, icon A, the one on the left, was correctly interpreted 40% of the time, whereas icon B was correctly interpreted 60% of the time. The preferences were reversed, where icon A was more preferred at 60%. Several participants confused the icon with a blood bag, recommending adding more detail like a needle. Several participants also indicated that the X looked more like an instruction to not give fluid or to stop giving fluids, rather than indicating an absence or delay. Participants struggled more with the no vitals or blood pressure icons, with less than 20% of participants correctly interpreting each of them. C was the most correctly interpreted, but also the least preferred. Participants commented that the icon looked just like a black box and the large X confused them. A and B were split evenly for preference. For most of the incomplete request icons, only 1 or 2 participants correctly interpreted them. The exception was icon D, where 14% of participants correctly identified it as an incomplete request. However, 0 participants chose it as their preferred icon. Icon B, which was correctly interpreted by 1 participant, was preferred by 43% of participants. Overwhelmingly, participants generally did not like the designs. Participants recommended steering away from this abstract idea and instead picking specific tasks like intubation or blood transfusion. From the initial survey results, we found that our participants did not prefer what seemed to be the most easily interpretable icons, and this contrasted with icon design literature. The participants' comments also indicated preferences for more simple icons. But we redesigned the icons based on the feedback, and we included adding details to the IVIO and vitals icons to make them more realistic. Because many participants recommended switching incomplete requests with specific tasks, we redesigned the corresponding icons into a graphical version and a simpler progress bar version. To assess if adding realism to the icon design helped, we evaluated these icons in a second survey. We asked participants to again interpret the icons and then rate them on different scales, including preferability, simplicity, and realism. We also introduced a version of each icon with added text in the preferability ranking to see if our clinicians preferred the addition of text. Across the board, interpretability of icons markedly increased after redesign. The new IVIO icon, icon E, was correctly interpreted by over 80% of participants. But surprisingly to us, participants overwhelmingly preferred icon C from the first survey. Despite icon E's interpretability and realism, participants said that they preferred the fewer details and elements in the icon design. For the no vitals or blood pressure icon, icon E was correctly interpreted by 60% of participants and was ranked as most realistic by 37%. Still, participants preferred icon A, once again citing the fewer elements and details in the design. Participants thought there were too many details in icon E and that it would take more time to figure out what it meant at a glance. For incomplete requests, we didn't compare interpretability as the progress bar icon indicated its meaning via text, but interpretability scores for icon A were high. Here we see that although participants thought the graphical icon versions were realistic, they preferred the simplicity of the progress bar icons. Those who did prefer the graphical icon versions said that would be difficult to distinguish from each other at a glance. Despite this higher interpretability, redesigned icons scored low on preference, and complexity was cited as a drawback. Simpler icons were across the board preferred. Adding text improved interpretability, but didn't always improve preference, as it would take more time to read to interpret what the icon was. One participant said that the simplest icon is also the most realistic and the most sufficient. Through this icon design process for our time-critical teamwork, we identified 3 design guidelines. First, simplicity is key, as icons must be quickly recognizable for efficient decision-making. This emerged from participants struggling with complex icons under stress. Second, we learned to carefully use text and symbols, balancing clarity with simplicity, after noting that concise text aids comprehension, but too much can overwhelm the simplicity of an icon. Lastly, the importance of designing and evaluating icons within the system's context became clear, as icons need to be effective under specific environmental constraints like time pressures and cognitive load. In the future, we'll be using the guidelines and the feedback from our participants to evaluate the icons within the system context using live simulations. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and thank you to our partners at Children's National and to the National Science Foundation for funding our research. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.